The register beeps. Then again. Then silence, the kind that fills a checkout line when something is wrong and everyone feels it but nobody says it yet. Maya's hands are shaking. Not slightly. Visibly. Both palms pressed flat against the register counter like she is trying to hold herself together through the cold hard surface of it, her long braids falling forward, her blue Super Savers uniform too bright for how small she is making herself right now. Her name tag catches the fluorescent light. Maya. Clear as a verdict. A customer behind the conveyor belt lets out a long, pointed sigh. Are you serious right now? She doesn't answer. Her lips press together and her chin drops half an inch, the movement of a person absorbing a blow they were already expecting. 3 people back in the line, a man in a dark navy hoodie and a worn gray Chicago cap adjusts his brim and goes very still. He doesn't step forward. He doesn't say a word. Because what he is about to do will not be done loudly. And it will not be done yet. But it will cost someone in this store everything they thought they had. Hello family, please before we start, kindly like this video and subscribe. Also tell us in the comment where you are watching from. Chicago? Los Angeles? London? South Africa? Let us know in the comment. 6:47 a.m. The Super Savers on 63rd and Halsted opens its doors with the particular combination of fluorescent light and recycled air that signals the beginning of another shift, bright, relentless, and completely indifferent to whoever is standing inside it. Maya Ellison arrives 7 minutes early. She always does. Not because the job rewards it. Not because Denise Kroll, the shift manager who has made it her quiet mission to find fault with everything Maya touches, has ever once acknowledged it. She arrives early because arriving early is one of the only things in Maya's life right now that she can control, and control, the small, daily kind, the kind that keeps a person upright, is something she is holding onto with everything she has. She badges in, hangs her jacket on hook number 7 in the break room, and pulls her braids back with an elastic band she keeps on her wrist. The break room smells like burnt coffee and the ghost of someone's microwaved lunch from the night before. 2 other employees, a teenager named Dion and a woman named Carla who has worked the store for 11 years and speaks mostly in sighs, are already at the table, not talking. Maya pours herself a half cup of the burnt coffee. Drinks it standing up. Doesn't taste it. In her coat pocket, folded small, is a piece of paper from the pharmacy on Woodlawn. A prescription refill notice. Her mother's blood pressure medication. $47. The insurance covered it last month. This month, for a reason Maya spent 45 minutes on hold trying to understand, it doesn't. $47. She makes $11.20 an hour. After taxes and the bus fare that takes her from the 2-bedroom apartment on South Prairie where she and her mother share a bedroom because the rent on the second one went up $300 8 months ago, after all of that, $47 is a Tuesday and a Wednesday combined. She puts the paper back in her pocket. Goes to register 4. The morning rush at a South Side discount grocery is not a gentle thing. It is carts and screaming toddlers and people buying lottery tickets with the careful focus of people managing hope on a budget. It is with cards that sometimes decline and the particular silence of a line watching a mother try to figure out which items to put back. It is impatient and loud and it does not stop between 7 a.m. and noon. Maya works it with the quiet efficiency of someone who has learned to disappear into the job. Scan. Bag. Next. She knows the PLU codes for produce by memory. She knows which customers want their receipt and which ones leave it on the conveyor. She knows to double bag the orange juice for the older man who comes every Tuesday because the plastic handles cut his hands on the walk home. She is good at this job. This matters to her more than she would ever say out loud, because it is one of the few things she can point to and say, "This is mine, I do this well, they cannot take this from me." At 9:14 a.m., Denise Kroll walks past register 4 the way she always walks past register 4, slowly, eyes sliding sideways, the half-second assessment of a person looking for something wrong. Maya keeps her eyes on the register. Keeps scanning. keeps moving. Denise stops. Your line is backed up. Maya glances at the line. 4 people. Standard for a Tuesday morning. It's moving, she says. Move it faster. She walks away without waiting for a response, the way people walk away when they want you to know the conversation was never really a conversation. Dion, restocking a display 2 aisles over, catches Maya's eye and gives her a look that says everything without saying anything. She shakes her head slightly. Not now. Never now. Now is for working. At 10:02 a.m., the register drawer sticks. It does this sometimes. The mechanism has been reported twice, nothing fixed. Maya works it open with the heel of her palm, the way Carla showed her in the first week. The customer waiting sighs. Maya apologizes with a smile that has nothing left behind it. At 10:47 a.m., Denise reappears. This time with a clipboard. I need to speak with you about your shift performance, she says, the clipboard tilted at an angle that suggests documentation already in progress. One more incident and we're looking at formal review. Maya's jaw tightens. What incident? Denise doesn't answer. Just writes something on the clipboard. And walks away. Maya watches her go, both hands gripping the register counter until her knuckles pale, because this is the 3rd warning this month, and she has not made a single mistake, and somewhere in the back of her mind, behind the pharmacy receipt and the bus fare math, a terrible understanding is beginning to form. Julian Cade has not worn a suit in 4 days. This is unusual. In the normal architecture of his life, the glass-walled offices in the loop, the board meetings, the quarterly reviews where numbers climb columns like they are in a hurry, a suit is not clothing so much as infrastructure. It signals arrival. It communicates that the man inside it has already won whatever room he is walking into. The navy hoodie and gray Chicago cap communicate something else entirely. They say, I am nobody. I am just passing through. Don't look at me. Which is exactly the point. Julian Vance Cade is 49 years old, founder and CEO of the Super Savers grocery chain, 214 locations across the Midwest, 4,300 employees, a portfolio that has been called, in 3 separate business publications, one of the most remarkable retail expansion stories in Illinois history. He built it from a single corner store on the west side that his uncle left him when he died, a store with a broken walk-in cooler and a lease that was 6 weeks from expiring, and he built it by working every register, every stockroom, every dawn delivery until he understood the business from the floor up. That was 22 years ago. And somewhere in the distance between that corner store and 214 locations, Julian Cade stopped working the floor. He stopped walking the aisles. He stopped knowing what happened inside his own stores between the quarterly reports and the customer satisfaction metrics, which, he was now beginning to understand, measured exactly what the people filling them out wanted them to measure. The complaints started arriving 8 weeks ago. Anonymous. Routed through the company's internal ethics line. Scattered across 7 locations in Chicago, 2 in Milwaukee, 1 in Gary. The language varied, different voices, different specifics, but the architecture of the complaint was always the same: manager misconduct, employee intimidation, a workplace where the people lowest in the hierarchy existed in a state of controlled fear that nobody above them was close enough to see. His VP of operations called it a staffing problem. His HR director called it a cultural issue requiring a training intervention. Julian called it something else. He called it a failure of attention. His attention. Which is why, at 10:51 a.m. on a Tuesday, Julian Cade is standing in the snack aisle of the Super Savers on 63rd and Halstead, holding a bag of pretzels he has no intention of buying, watching a young woman at Register 4 try to hold herself together under fluorescent lights that hide nothing. He noticed her 11 minutes ago. Not because she was doing anything wrong, she wasn't. She was doing everything right, efficient, precise, patient with a woman who couldn't find her loyalty card and took 4 minutes to locate it in a purse the size of a small suitcase. But there was something in the way she held her body, shoulders slightly elevated, jaw slightly tight, the posture of a person waiting for something to land, that Julian recognized from the early years. From the corner store years. From the specific body language of a person who is very good at their job and has been made to feel, systematically and deliberately, that this is not enough. He watched the manager, the one with the clipboard, the one whose name tag read Denise, stop at register 4. Watched the exchange. Watched the way the young woman's hands gripped the counter when Denise walked away. He put the pretzels back on the shelf. Moved 2 aisles closer. That's when he heard it, a low voice, not meant to carry, coming from a stockroom door propped open at the end of the aisle. 2 employees, whispering with the specific urgency of people who have learned to talk quickly in the gaps between observations. They're going to pin it on her. She doesn't know yet? She's never going to see it coming. Julian went still. Around him, the store moved and breathed and beeped with the ordinary machinery of a Tuesday morning. He did not move for a long moment. Then he picked up a basket. Walked to the back of register 4's line. And waited. Because what those 2 voices just described was not a staffing problem. It was not a cultural issue requiring a training intervention. It was a setup. And the woman at register 4, her name tag catching the light every time she leaned forward, MAYA, 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 was the target. The lunch rush arrives at 11:30 like a weather event. Register 4's line stretches past the candy display, past the lottery ticket kiosk, almost to the pharmacy counter at the back. Maya works it without looking up, scan, bag, total, next, the rhythm of the register a kind of anchor, something to hold the shape of the hour together. She is good under pressure. This is one of the things she knows about herself, one of the few self-assessments that has survived intact from the version of her that existed before the last 2 years, before her mother's diagnosis, before the insurance changes, before the rent increase, before Denise Kroll made register 4 feel like a post she was being slowly court-martialed from. She handles the pressure. She does not handle what happens at 11:54 a.m. It starts with a transaction that goes slightly long, a customer paying partly with cash, partly with a card, needing to split a $31 total in a way that requires Maya to manually enter an amount into the cash tender field. Standard. She has done it 100 times. She enters the amount, hits confirm, takes the cash, makes change. The customer leaves. Maya moves to the next customer. And the register drawer does not close properly. She pushes it. It catches halfway. She pushes again, the same stuck mechanism from the morning, the same broken latch that has been reported and ignored, and it closes, mostly, and she moves on because the line is 8 people deep and this is not the moment to stop. She does not know that Denise is watching from the customer service desk 15 feet away. She does not know that Denise has been watching since 11:47. She does not know about the $50 bill. The $50 bill that was placed in the register's cash drawer during the shift change at 10 a.m., not as a standard float denomination, because Super Savers doesn't include 50s in the standard float, which is exactly the point, placed there deliberately, recorded in no log, its absence designed to be noticed only when the drawer is counted at the end of shift. A planted discrepancy. $50 that will not be there when the count happens. $50 that will have a name assigned to it. Maya scans a box of cereal. Bags a loaf of bread. Smiles at a little boy who is pressing his face against the candy display with the specific yearning of a child who has been told no. Nice try, she tells him, and he grins at her, and for 3 seconds, just 3, register 4 is not a place of pressure and surveillance. It is just a checkout lane where a kid is being a kid. Then her phone buzzes in her apron pocket. She doesn't check it during a transaction. She never does. But between customers, in the 4-second gap before the next person steps up, she glances down. A text from her mother's phone. Her mother almost never texts. It reads, "The pharmacy called. They said the card declined again. Maya, what do we do?" Maya reads it twice. Puts the phone away. The next customer steps up. "Hi," Maya says. "Did you find everything okay?" Her voice comes out steady. Her hands do not. They are trembling now, small, controlled, the fine motor tremor of a nervous system running on too little sleep and too much held-in fear and the specific fresh shock of a text that just told her the medication her mother needs to avoid a second stroke costs $47 they do not have. The customer glances at her hands. Maya scans faster. Focuses harder. 2 registers over, Dion looks at her. Looks at Denise. Looks back at Maya. Sees the trembling. Sees Denise's expression, not concern, not empathy, but the small satisfied tightening of a person watching a trap work exactly as designed. He takes a step toward the customer service desk. Denise's eyes move to him immediately. He stops. Stays where he is. Goes back to restocking. At the back of Register 4's line, Julian Cade watches all of it. The trembling hands. The manager's expression. The coworker who took one step toward intervention and retreated. He watches the whole choreography of a workplace that has learned, systematically and thoroughly, that getting involved costs more than staying silent. He grips the basket handle. Moves one position closer in the line. Because the drawer count is coming. And when it does, there will be a shortage that nobody in this store is supposed to be able to explain, except Denise Kroll, who will have an explanation ready, and a name already attached to it, and a woman at Register 4 who has no idea the floor beneath her was cut loose an hour ago. It happens at 12:31 p.m. The drawer count is not supposed to happen mid-shift. This is not standard Super Savers procedure. Mid-shift counts happen when there is a specific reason to trigger one, a customer complaint, a system alert, a manager's request. Denise Kroll requested one at 12:15. The assistant manager on duty, a young man named Patrick who has been in the role for 6 weeks and has spent most of those weeks learning which battles Denise fights and which ones she wins, approved it without asking why. Maya is mid-transaction when Denise approaches Register 4. "Finish your customer," Denise says, not to Maya, but to the air beside her, the particular register of a person addressing someone they have already decided is not worth direct eye contact. Maya finishes. Hands the receipt across. The customer takes it and leaves quickly, the way customers leave when they sense something institutional and unpleasant is about to happen. Step back from the register. Maya steps back. Denise opens the drawer with the key on her belt. Pulls out the cash tray. Sets it on the counter with the deliberate care of someone who wants what they are doing to be witnessed. She counts. The line behind Register 4 has not dispersed. 7 people still waiting, shifted into the loose, watching formation of people who have decided this is more interesting than leaving. Denise counts again. Looks up at Maya. There's a 50 missing. Maya blinks. What? $50. Not in the drawer. I've counted twice. That's not possible. The float was verified at shift start. You've been on this register for 5 hours and 44 minutes. Denise's voice is completely level, the practiced calm of someone who has rehearsed this. The math is straightforward. Maya's voice rises half a register. I haven't touched anything that wasn't a transaction. I'm not going to debate this in front of customers. Then don't accuse me in front of customers. A beat. Something shifts in Denise's expression, not surprise, but the recalibration of a person who expected less resistance. She tilts the clipboard. This is the 3rd discrepancy flagged on the register this month. There haven't been any discrepancies. The records say otherwise. The 7 people in line are no longer pretending not to listen. A woman near the front has her phone out, not raised, but held, angled slightly, the posture of someone who has not quite decided yet. Maya can feel them. Every one of them. The weight of being watched by strangers who do not know her, who are hearing the word discrepancy and the implication beneath it and forming, in the space of 30 seconds, an assessment of her character from the outside of this exchange. Her face goes hot. I didn't take anything, she says. Her voice comes out smaller than she wants it to. I have never taken anything from this register. That's what we're going to have to verify. Verify it then. Pull the footage. Look at every transaction. Maya. Denise's voice drops, sharpens. You need to lower your voice. I need you to stop implying. Security. She says it without raising her voice. Not to anyone specific, just into the air, the way a person speaks who knows the system around them will respond. And it does. The security guard stationed near the front entrance, a man named Curtis who is 61 years old and has worked this store for 9 years and who Maya brings coffee to on cold mornings because she noticed once that he never has any. Curtis starts moving toward Register 4 with the expression of a man who does not want to be doing what he is being asked to do but has no framework for refusal. Maya watches him come. Curtis, she says. He doesn't meet her eyes. Her throat closes. Not because of what is happening to her employment. Not yet. Because Curtis who she brings coffee to, Curtis who calls her young Maya and once showed her a picture of his granddaughter, Curtis cannot look at her, and in his inability to look at her is a mirror of what the room has already decided. Guilty. Before a single piece of evidence. Before one frame of footage. Guilty because a manager said the number and the system moved and the people in line shifted their weight and pulled their phones slightly closer and the story wrote itself in real time without her permission. I didn't do this, Maya says. To no one. To everyone. Denise is already speaking to Curtis, low and directing. At the back of the thinning line, the man in the Chicago cap has not moved. He is watching Register 4 with the focused stillness of a person conducting a very different kind of count. Not cash. Not transactions. He is counting the things that do not add up. And there are enough of them now, the mid-shift count, the planted certainty in Denise's voice, the clipboard already filled before the drawer was opened, that Julian Cade sets down his basket, straightens slowly, and steps out of the line. Curtis has one hand on the employee gate. He still hasn't looked at Maya. She is standing with her back against the register counter now, arms crossed at her waist, not defiant, but the posture of a person holding their own ribcage together. Her braids have come slightly loose. Her name tag is tilted. The blue uniform that was crisp this morning has the wrinkled, compressed look of a shift that has lasted years inside a single day. Please, she says, quietly, to no one who is listening. The word just falls. Lands on the floor. Gets walked over. Ma'am. The voice comes from behind Denise. Not loud. Not aggressive. The particular register of a man who speaks at the volume that expects to be heard rather than the volume that demands it. Denise turns. The man in the dark navy hoodie and gray Chicago cap is standing 3 feet from her, hands loose at his sides, basket set down on the conveyor belt behind him. Medium height. Broad across the shoulders in the way of a man who was built and stayed built. Close-cropped beard, dark complexion, eyes that are doing something specific. They are not looking at Denise. They are looking at the register. Is there a discrepancy in the drawer? He asks. Denise's expression performs patience. Sir, this is an internal employee matter. I understand. I'm asking a factual question. Is there a discrepancy in the drawer? That is not information we share with. How much? A beat. $50, Denise says, and immediately looks like she wishes she hadn't. The man nods slowly. And when was the float last verified? Sir, I really need you to. When was the float last verified? Not a question this time. The repetition of a man who has already decided that this conversation will arrive at the answer even if the other person in it would prefer otherwise. Denise's jaw tightens. Shift start. What time? 6:45. And this register has been in continuous operation since 6:45? Yes. By one cashier? A pause. Fractional. The pause of a person realizing that the questions are not random. Yes. So the float was verified at 6:45. The register has been operated exclusively by this employee, and there is now a $50 shortage. He says it back flatly, no inflection, like a man reading a set of terms and conditions he wants to make sure are correctly understood. And your conclusion is employee theft. My conclusion, Denise says carefully, is that there is a discrepancy that requires investigation. Then investigate. We are. The security footage, he says. Pull it. Right now. Not after she's been escorted out. Not after the shift ends. Now. Denise stares at him. The remaining customers in line are not moving. The woman with her phone has it fully raised now. 2 employees at the adjacent registers have turned, the pretense of work abandoned. I don't know who you think you are, Denise says, but this is not. I think I'm a customer, he says pleasantly, who is watching a woman being publicly accused of theft without a single piece of evidence being presented, in front of other customers, in a way that will follow her regardless of what the investigation finds. He pauses. I also think a store that operates this way has some significant problems beyond a $50 discrepancy. The fluorescent lights hum. A child somewhere in the store drops something. The clatter of it echoes. Denise takes one step toward him. I'm going to need you to leave this area or I'll have security. Pull. The footage. 3 words. The same volume as every other sentence he has spoken. But something in the delivery of them lands differently, the finality of a person who is done with the preliminary portion of a conversation and is now at the part where things are decided. Denise looks at him for a long moment. Then at Curtis. Curtis, who has now taken both hands off the employee gate and is looking at the man in the Chicago cap with the specific alertness of a security guard who has worked a store long enough to recognize when a stranger is not a stranger in the way they are presenting themselves. I'll need to call the store manager, Denise says finally. Good, the man says. Do that. Maya has not moved from her position against the register counter. She is looking at this man, this nobody in a hoodie and a cap who walked out of a checkout line and redirected the entire force of a public humiliation with 4 questions in absolute composure, and she does not know what to do with what she is feeling. Not gratitude yet. Too raw for that. Something more confused and more fundamental, the disorientation of a person who has been bracing for impact and had the blow redirected by a stranger with no apparent reason to care. Why are you doing this? She asks. Not challenging. Genuinely asking. He looks at her for the first time directly. Because the register logs will show every transaction you ran today, he says. And I want to see them before anything else happens. He doesn't say, because I own this store. He doesn't say, because I have been listening since 10:51 this morning. He doesn't say, because 2 employees told me you were being set up and everything I have watched in the last 90 minutes confirms it. He says none of it. Because the man in the Chicago cap has learned, over 22 years of building something from nothing, that the most important move is rarely the first one you want to make. And what he wants, right now, more than anything, is to see what Denise Kroll does next. The store manager's name is Robert Finch. He has managed this location for 3 years, and in those 3 years he has learned one operational truth above all others. Denise Kroll runs her shift cleanly on paper, her numbers are always in order at the end of the month, and the corporate performance reviews that land on his desk every quarter reflect a department that hums. He has never looked too closely at how the humming is produced. Looking too closely is how you inherit problems. He arrives at register 4 at 12:44 p.m. with his reading glasses pushed up on his forehead and the particular expression of a man who is eating lunch and is not pleased about it. He looks at Denise. He looks at Maya, still pressed against the register counter. He looks at the man in the Chicago cap, who has not moved from his position 3 feet from the register since Denise went to make her call. What's the situation? Finch asks. Denise begins immediately. Her voice is practiced and sequential, the shift start float, the transaction log, the drawer count, the $50 shortage. She presents it the way a person presents something they have already decided, the facts arranged not to illuminate but to confirm. Finch nods along. He is already composing the incident report in his head. Before you do anything with that, the man in the cap says, I'd like to see the security footage from this register. 6:45 to now. Finch looks at him properly for the first time. And you are? A customer with a question about how this store operates. A pause. Humor me. Something in the phrasing makes Finch hesitate. It is not what the man says. It is the quality of the stillness around the words, the particular composure of someone who is accustomed to rooms doing what they are told. Denise, Finch says, pull the footage. Denise's chin lifts half an inch. I don't think that's. Pull the footage. She goes. The three of them, Finch, Maya, the man in the cap, stand at register 4 in the specific silence that exists when something is about to be decided and all three people present know it but cannot yet say so. Maya looks at her hands. They have stopped shaking. She is not sure when that happened. She is not sure if it is steadiness or if she has simply run past the point where shaking is still a viable option and arrived somewhere colder and more functional. Around them, the store moves. Customers come and go through other registers. Dion, 3 aisles over, is restocking a shelf with the focused attention of a man who is absolutely listening to everything happening at register 4 while making sure no one can accuse him of it. 2 other employees, a woman named Sandra from the deli counter and a young man from the overnight stock crew named Terrell who has stayed past his shift for reasons he has not explained, are positioned at the edge of the produce section with the particular body language of witnesses who are not sure yet whether their testimony will be required. The man in the cap notices them. He notices Dion. He notices the way every employee in visible range has oriented themselves, subtly, toward register 4, the way people orient toward a fire, not to approach it but to know exactly where it is. He files it. How long have you worked here? He asks Maya. Quietly. Not a cross-examination. The tone of someone genuinely asking. For years, she says. He nods. Any write-ups before this month? She shakes her head. Performance reviews? All satisfactory or above. She pauses. Until Denise became shift manager 6 months ago. He looks at her steadily. 6 months ago. Yes. He doesn't respond. But something behind his eyes recalibrates, the expression of a man adding a number to a column that is getting longer and less comfortable with every addition. Finch's phone buzzes. He steps away to answer it, and in the 30 seconds of his absence the man in the cap turns slightly and looks toward the customer service desk where Denise has gone to access the security system. From this angle, through the gap in the display shelving, he can see her. She is not pulling up footage. She is on her phone. He watches her for 4 seconds. Watches the angle of her body, turned away from the customer service desk camera, shoulders slightly hunched, the physical grammar of a person having a conversation they do not want recorded. Julian K. takes his phone from his hoodie pocket. Opens a contact he has not used in 2 months. Types 4 words and hits send, get to this store. Then he puts the phone away and waits for Denise Kroll to come back with footage she has had 4 minutes to decide whether to alter. The security room is a converted storage closet behind the pharmacy counter. 6 monitors. 4 camera feeds per monitor. The footage stored on a local server and mirrored to a cloud backup that, like most cloud backups in operations of this size, nobody thinks about until something goes wrong. Denise leads them in at 12:59 p.m. Finch. The man in the cap. Maya, who was not invited but followed anyway, the quiet, specific defiance of a person who has decided that whatever happens in this room, she will not be standing outside it while it happens. Nobody told her to leave. Denise sits at the console. Pulls up the register 4 feed. Types in the timestamp, 6:45. The footage begins. It is, for the first 40 minutes, completely unremarkable. Maya opening her register. Verifying the float with the standard count procedure, every bill lifted and replaced, lips moving slightly with the count. The morning customers arriving in their familiar rhythms, the lottery ticket regulars, the mothers with strollers, the man with the orange juice who double bags because of his hands. The register drawer sticking at 10:02, Maya working it open with the heel of her palm, exactly as she described. Nothing. No unexplained reaches into the drawer. No movements that don't correspond to transactions. Nothing that resembles, in any frame, what Denise's clipboard has been building a case for all morning. The man in the cap watches the footage with his arms crossed and his weight slightly forward, the posture of someone reading a document they already suspect contains a specific sentence and are moving through the pages to find it. "Go to 10 o'clock, he says. Denise's hand moves to the keyboard. Hesitates one beat too long. Types the timestamp. 10 hours. The shift change. The incoming cashier from the previous register, a man named Greg who works the 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. slot, stepping away. Maya's register going into standby for the standard 2-minute changeover period. And then, a figure. Entering from the left side of the frame. Not a customer. The uniform marks it instantly, blue Super Savers polo, manager's lanyard. The figure moves to register 4's counter with the brisk purposefulness of someone performing a routine task. Opens the register. Reaches into the cash tray. Removes something. Closes the drawer. 22 seconds. Start to finish. The figure moves back out of frame. The room is completely silent. Not the ambient silence of an ordinary pause in conversation. The specific, pressurized silence of a room in which something has been seen that cannot be unseen, and every person present is processing their own version of what it means and what it costs. Finch leans forward. Go back. Denise does not move. Go back. She rewinds. The figure moves in reverse through the 22 seconds, drawer closing, hand withdrawing, drawer opening, figure approaching, and then forward again, slower this time, Finch's index finger hovering near the screen. The lanyard. At the 4-second mark, the figure turns slightly, not toward the camera, not deliberately, just the natural physics of a person reaching into a cash drawer with their dominant hand, and the lanyard swings outward and the name badge on it catches the overhead light for exactly 2 frames. 2 frames. Enough. Finch straightens. The man in the Chicago cap has not moved, has not changed expression, but something about the quality of his stillness has shifted. It is no longer the stillness of a man waiting to see what will be revealed. It is the stillness of a man who has seen what he came to see and is now deciding what to do with it. Maya is standing at the back of the small room with both hands at her sides and her eyes on the monitor, and she is doing the thing she has been doing all day, holding herself together through alone, through the specific discipline of a person who has learned not to come apart in front of people who are looking for a reason to dismiss her. But her jaw is shaking. Just slightly. Just enough. She starts. Don't, the man in the cap says. Not to silence her. To protect her. The single word carrying the weight of, let me handle the next part. He turns to Denise Kroll. Denise, who has been staring at the monitor since the second playback ended, who has not spoken since the figure on screen turned and the lanyard swung, who is sitting very still in the console chair with the particular stillness of a person who has just watched the architecture of a plan they built over weeks collapse in 2 frames of security footage. The badge in the footage, the man in the cap says. Very quietly. Whose is it? Denise says nothing. I want to hear you say it. The monitor hums. The timestamp at the bottom of the frozen frame reads 10 hours and 22 seconds. The name on the lanyard is not Maya's. The name on the lanyard has been running this shift for 6 months. And the man in the Chicago cap reaches up, takes the brim of his cap between 2 fingers, and slowly, deliberately, removes it. The cap comes off. Julian Cates sets it on the console beside the keyboard with the careful placement of a man setting down something he has been carrying for a specific purpose and no longer needs. For a moment, nobody speaks. Finch's mouth opens. closes, opens again. He has seen Julian Cade's photograph on the company intranet, on the About page of the Super Savers website, on the framed portrait in the regional operations office that every store manager is shown during onboarding orientation. He has seen the photograph enough times that recognition arrives now, not slowly but all at once, a sudden full-body understanding that floods in behind the eyes and then moves immediately into something else, the sick, cold arithmetic of a man calculating everything he missed, everything he allowed, everything that happened in this building on his watch while he was eating lunch and not looking too closely. "Mr. Cade," he starts. "In a moment," Julian says. He is looking at Denise. Denise Kroll has not moved from the console chair. Her hands are in her lap. Her clipboard, that clipboard, the one she has been carrying like a weapon all morning, is resting against the chair leg, and it looks, from this angle, very small. 6 months, Julian says. It is not a question. He is not asking her to confirm the timeline. He is placing it in the room, letting it occupy space. 6 months you have been shift manager on this floor. In that time, this employee has received 3 formal warnings that do not correspond to any verifiable performance incident. She has been scheduled for double shifts she did not agree to. She has been publicly accused of theft in front of customers, in front of coworkers, without a single piece of evidence presented before the accusation was made. He pauses. And this morning, at approximately 10 a.m., during a register changeover, you removed $50 from her cash drawer. The word "you" lands in the room like a stone into still water. The ripples of it reach every corner. Denise's lips part. "I want an attorney." "You'll have one," Julian says. HR is already on their way. So is loss prevention. What happens in the next 4 minutes is going to determine a significant amount of what comes next for you, so I'm going to give you one opportunity to speak before they arrive. Is there anything you want to say? She says nothing. He nods once. Accepts the silence. Turns away from her. And turns to Maya. Maya Ellison, who has been standing at the back of the security room since the footage played. Who watched the lanyard. Who heard every word of the last 4 minutes. Who is standing now with her arms uncrossed, no longer holding herself together, not because she has come apart, but because she no longer needs the armor. The thing she needed the armor against has been named, on camera, in a room with 3 witnesses. She looks at Julian Cade, really looks, the full-face attention of a person recalibrating everything they thought they understood about the last 90 minutes. "You're the owner," she says. "Yes." "Of this store. Of this chain." She absorbs this. "How long have you been here?" "Since before 11. Her expression moves through several things in quick succession: disbelief, relief, something that is almost anger, something that is almost gratitude, and underneath both of them a question that hasn't yet found its words. "You watched all of it," she says. "Yes." "And you didn't," she stops. Restarts. "You let it happen." The room goes very quiet. Finch looks at the floor. Julian holds her gaze. "I needed to see it. All of it. Not just the moment, the pattern. The way it was built. The way everyone in this store knew something was wrong and found a way to survive by not saying so." "That's not an answer," Maya says. "No," he says. "It's not." He doesn't look away. He doesn't soften it or redirect it or manage it into something more comfortable. He just lets her assessment of him stand, the same way he stood and watched her be accused, except now the standing is different, and they both know it. From outside the security room, through the closed door, voices are arriving. The HR coordinator Julian texted 40 minutes ago. The loss prevention officer from the regional office who has been on his way since the text that read 4 words and contained enough in them to understand. Footsteps. Keys. The particular sound of an institutional response clicking into motion. Denise Kroll hears it too. And in the security room's monitor glow, watching the door, she looks suddenly like exactly what she is, A person who built a trap and walked into the room where the footage lives, and did not understand, until 2 frames of light on a lanyard, that the trap had always been facing the wrong direction. 1:38 p.m. Denise Kroll is escorted from the building through the back receiving entrance, not the front, not past the registers, not through the checkout lanes where the afternoon shift is now running with the slightly elevated awareness of a staff who knows something significant happened in the last 2 hours and are waiting to understand what it means for them. She goes out the back. Her keys and her clipboard are left on the manager's desk. The clipboard, face up, still shows the morning's notes, the timestamps, the transaction flags, the language of an investigation that was never an investigation. Robert Finch looks at it for a long time after the door closes. Then he turns it face down. In the break room, Julian sits across from Maya at the small table that smells like burnt coffee and someone's microwaved lunch. The HR coordinator, a woman named Diane Chen who flew in from the regional office and has the brisk, careful energy of someone who has managed exactly this kind of situation before and finds it, every time, equally unacceptable, is at the table too, her laptop open, her questions precise and unhurried. Maya answers them. All of them. The double shifts. The write-ups without cause. The way the register drawer had been reported twice and never fixed, which she now understands was not negligence but architecture, a broken mechanism kept broken because a stuck drawer creates hesitation and hesitation creates the appearance of irregularity. The way Denise would position herself at the customer service desk during Maya's busiest periods, clipboard visible, the surveillance performance of a manager building a file. She lays it out with the flat, sequential clarity of someone who has been carrying a thing for so long that telling it is almost a relief, not because it is over, but because it is finally being witnessed by someone who will write it down. Diane writes everything down. Julian listens. At some point during the second hour, Dion appears at the break room door. Stands in it for a moment, turning his store apron in his hands. Then he steps in. Sits down. And begins to talk. He is followed, 15 minutes later, by Sandra from the deli counter. And then by Terrell, the overnight stock crew member who stayed past his shift for reasons that become clear the moment he opens his mouth. He has been waiting 6 weeks for a moment that felt safe enough to say what he saw. For employees. For separate accounts. The same pattern in all of them. Julian sits and listens to each one and something happens to his face across the 2 hours that is not quite visible in any single moment but is cumulative and unmistakable by the end, the expression of a man doing a thorough and painful accounting of what his distance from this floor has cost the people working it. At 3:15 p.m., Diane steps out to make calls. The break room is briefly, for the first time all afternoon, just Julian and Maya. Maya is holding a cup of coffee she hasn't touched. Looking at the table. Julian says, "You asked me earlier why I didn't stop it sooner." She doesn't look up. "You didn't answer." "I know." He folds his hands on the table. "The honest answer is that I'm not close enough to what happens in these stores. I've been making decisions from reports and metrics and quarterly reviews that tell me what my managers want me to see. And somewhere in the distance between the reports and the actual floor, the actual people," he stops. "People like you get reduced to a line item. A discrepancy. A performance flag." Maya is quiet. "That's not an excuse," he says. "It's an explanation. There's a difference. I'm not asking you to accept it as the first or to confuse it for the second." She looks up at him now. "My mother needs medication. $47. I couldn't cover it this week because I was trying to cover the rent increase in the bus fare and," she stops herself. "You don't need the whole inventory." "I do," he says. "Why?" "Because the $47 is the number. But everything around it, the rent increase, the bus fare, the prescription, the double shifts you couldn't refuse because you needed every hour, that's the system. And I've been running the system without looking at what it produces at the bottom of it." A long silence settles between them. Not uncomfortable. The silence of two people sitting with a truth that is too large to respond to immediately and too important to deflect. I'm reinstating you, effective today, Julian says. Full back pay for any shifts you were denied or had adjusted unfairly. The record cleared. And I'm having someone look at the compensation structure for every employee in this location. Maya nods slowly. You hesitated, he says. When I said reinstated. Why? She looks at him for a long moment. Because I've been here 4 years, she says carefully, and it took you walking in disguised as a customer to see what was happening. And I don't know how to feel about the fact that my situation only got fixed because the owner happened to be standing in line. Julian Kate has no answer for that. Not a clean one. Not one that doesn't cost him something to say honestly. And in the break room of the Super Savers on 63rd and Halsted, with the fluorescent lights humming above them and Diane Chen's footsteps returning down the hallway, he sits with the question the way it deserves to be sat with, fully, and without the comfort of resolution. 3 days later. The Super Savers on 63rd and Halsted opens at 7 a.m. the way it always opens, fluorescent lights clicking on in sequence from the back of the store to the front, the refrigeration units humming to life, the automatic doors sliding apart to receive the first of the morning customers who are already waiting on the sidewalk with their carts and their lists and their particular economies of need. Maya Ellison is not at Register 4. Register 4 is staffed this morning by a woman named Patricia who transferred from the Ashland location yesterday, who knows her PLU codes and keeps her drawer clean and smiles at the boy who presses his face against the candy display. Maya is in Robert Finch's office. Except it is not Robert Finch's office anymore. Robert Finch tendered his resignation 48 hours ago, in a letter that was careful and brief and said nothing specific about why, which everyone who read it understood was exactly the point. He was not terminated. He was given the particular corporate mercy extended to managers who did not do the thing that was done but created and maintained the environment in which it could be done without consequence, and who have the good judgment to recognize that this distinction, while real, is not the same as innocence. The office has been cleared. On the desk, beside a still-warm cup of coffee, is a set of keys. Julian Kate is standing at the window that looks out over the store floor, watching the morning settle into its rhythm. He is wearing a suit today. Dark navy, no tie, the jacket cut close, not the infrastructure suit of the boardroom but something more considered, more deliberate, as though he dressed this morning with the specific intention of being seen as what he is rather than disguised as something easier. Maya sits across the desk. She is wearing her own clothes, not the blue uniform, not yet, though it is folded on the chair beside her because she is not sure yet what today means and she wanted the option. Dark jeans, a gray pullover, her braids down. She looks different without the name tag. She looks, Julian thinks but does not say, like someone who has not been fully visible for a long time and is in the early stages of remembering what that feels like. Diane Chen is present again, laptop open, her role today less intake and more witness. Julian turns from the window. I want to tell you what I've done, he says, and then I want to ask you something. In that order. Maya nods. Denise Kroll has been terminated. Loss prevention has confirmed this was not an isolated incident. There is evidence of similar conduct at her previous location, which was not surfaced during her hiring review because our reference process is, he chooses the word carefully, inadequate. That is being changed. The 4 employees who gave statements have all received written acknowledgement and are being offered case-by-case remediation for anything they experienced. He moves to the desk. Sits across from her. The camera footage was provided to the relevant authorities yesterday. Payroll has processed your back pay. It will be in your account by end of day today. Your mother's prescription, he pauses. Diane made a call. It's covered. Today and going forward, under a supplemental benefits adjustment we should have had in place for every employee at this income level 2 years ago. Maya's face does something complicated. She presses her lips together. Breathes through it. Does not look away. Thank you, she says. The words come out slightly uneven. Not performed. Real. Julian nods. There's more. He leans forward slightly. I've been building this company for 22 years. And in that time I've developed an extremely detailed understanding of supply chain, real estate, financing, market positioning. He pauses. In an almost complete blind spot for what happens at floor level. Not because I don't care, but because I stopped being present at floor level, and I surrounded myself with reporting structures that were very good at telling me what I wanted to hear. He looks at her steadily. What you described in this break room yesterday, the broken drawer, the double shifts, the way the write-up system was being used, none of it appears in any report that lands on my desk. None of it. Because the people filling out the reports are the same people producing the conditions. Maya is listening with the focused attention she gives to things that matter. Both hands in her lap. Eyes on his. I'm creating a new role, Julian says. Employee Experience Director. The mandate is to build and run a system that gives people at every level of this company a real, protected, direct line of communication upward. Not through their manager. Not through HR directly. And to be the person who walks these floors, all 214 of them, and asks the questions I should have been asking for the last 10 years. He slides the keys across the desk. I'm asking you to take it. The break room is silent. Not the silence of the store, not the fluorescent hum, not the beep of registers, not the morning machinery of a building doing what it was built to do. The specific silence of a room in which a question has been asked that carries the weight of everything that came before it. Maya looks at the keys. They are not register keys. They are not the keys to this office, or this store. They are a set of master keys, the kind that opens things at a level she has never had access to, and they are sitting on the desk 3 feet from her hands, and she is looking at them the way a person looks at something that is exactly what they need and exactly what they never expected and exactly what they are not sure they trust yet. I have a GED, she says. I have a loan no bank believed in, Julian says. We can talk about what the role requires. We can talk about support, structure, compensation. But I want to know first whether you're interested, before we get to the mechanics. She is quiet for a long moment. She thinks about her mother at the kitchen table in the apartment on South Prairie, phone in hand, typing Maya, what do we do? She thinks about Curtis at the gate, unable to look at her. She thinks about Dion and Sandra and Terrell, all of them finding their way to the break room one by one, all of them carrying things that had nowhere to go. She thinks about 4 years of arriving 7 minutes early to a job she was good at, in a building that spent 6 months trying to make her invisible. She picks up the keys. They are heavier than she expected. Or maybe that's just the weight of what they mean. I have conditions, she says. Julian almost smiles. I expected you would. The broken drawer gets fixed today. Not tomorrow. Today. And every reported maintenance issue across every location gets a response window, in writing, within 48 hours. Because broken things that stay broken aren't accidents. They're choices. And I won't work in a company that makes that choice. Julian looks at Diane. Diane is already typing. Done, he says. Maya closes her hand around the keys. Outside the office window, the Super Savers on 63rd and Halstead is running its ordinary Tuesday morning. Registers beeping. Carts rolling. The boy pressing his face against the candy display, his mother already saying no. The lottery ticket regulars with their careful hope. Curtis at the door, coffee in hand, a cup that appeared on the security desk at 6:58 a.m., left without a note, because some things do not need to be explained. Maya stands. Picks up the folded blue uniform from the chair beside her. Looks at it for a moment. Sets it back down. She walks to the office door. Pauses with her hand on the frame, the keys in her other hand, looking out at the floor she has worked for 4 years, the aisles, the lights, the long rows of product, register 4 running clean under Patricia's steady hands. Then she steps through. Not as an employee. Not as a victim. As the person who is going to make sure that what happened to her is the last time it happens here. Maya spent 4 years arriving 7 minutes early to a job that spent 6 months trying to erase her. She didn't break. She didn't disappear. She waited for one person to stop and ask a question. Someone in your life is waiting for the same thing right now. Share this story. And be that person before they stop waiting.